Dear children, hope you have read that part of the story. I feel you had no difficulty in understanding. Okay, this part we see Namitha reading her mother's letter. She sits down and starts reading her mother's letter. And what is the content of that letter? That is my first question to you. What was the content of that letter? What had her mother written in this particular letter? As always, she had written about her complaints, about her hardships, about the misfortunes she was facing. Her standard speech. That's what the author says. It was her standard speech. That means she has always had this habit of writing about her complaints, her grievances, her misfortunes, hardships. Now this time, what was that particular complaint, the specific complaint, the specific misfortune that she was referring to in this particular letter? So in this letter, she had written about her leaking roof. Water was sweeping into her bedroom through that leaking roof. And she had written, if it was not remedied or repaired this time, she would die under a crumbled roof. Okay, her house would collapse and she would die under the debris. This was what she had written. And then she had written, okay, I don't mind dying, but it would be an insult for my daughter who is living like a queen, and for my son-in-law who is high-minded, large-hearted, etc., etc. This was what she had written. Okay, as always, she had written about her complaints and about her grievances. Now come to the next question. What type of a woman her mother was? What type of a lady she was? Okay, she was an indigent widow. Indigent means a poor widow. She was a poor widow. She had only her daughter. Nobody else. She had no husband, no son. No one was there to support her. And she was such a poor lady. She was a very loving. She loved her daughter so much. And she always did everything possible to make sure that her daughter lived in happiness. And she even succeeded in giving her daughter in marriage to a wealthy man. But there was one blemish in her character, one negative aspect of her character. That was she was a big mouth. She was a boastful person. A big mouth means a boastful person, one who speaks highly about himself, one who blows his own trumpet. So she was a big mouth. She always told others that it was because of her skill that she could give her daughter in marriage to a wealthy man. She told it was all because of me. Actually, it was because of the good looks of Namitha that Ajit got attracted to her. Namitha was so pretty, and because of her pretty looks, she got married to Ajit. But this lady always took credit for getting her daughter married to a very wealthy man. Now come to the third question. How did Ajit usually respond to his mother-in-law's letters? So we see the mother had been writing letters for a long time. She had always been writing letters. And what kind of an attitude this man, Ajit, had towards his mother-in-law's letters? Okay. How did he respond to those letters? Actually, he looked upon his mother-in-law with contempt. And he never wanted his mother-in-law to write letters. So he would look at those letters derisively. Derisively means with contempt. He would look down upon those letters derisively and would say, why bother about reading that letter? Send her some money order. Okay, he would pass such a very hurting comment. Okay, such a comment would certainly hurt Namitha because it's an insult to her mother's poverty. He would say, why bother about reading the letter? Send her a money order. This was the kind of person Ajit was. He would not spare any opportunity to insult Namitha and her mother. Now come back to the fourth question. Why do you think Namitha asked her mother not to write on postcards? Okay, Namitha had earlier written her mother not to write on postcards. Why do you think she put this condition? She asked her mother not to write on postcards. You know what postcards are? Nowadays people don't use postcards, but in olden days it was the cheapest mode of communication. You could get a postcard for 10 paise or 15 paise. You could write a letter and send a letter to anybody in India. It was the cheapest mode of communication, and England would cost 50 paise at that time. That means you could get a postcard for just 10 paise. So what is the disadvantage of writing on a postcard? There is a disadvantage because that letter could be read by anybody. First of all, it would be read by the postman, then it would be read by the other members of the family. So the rich would never write on postcards. The poor had only this resort. They would resort to writing letters on postcards. And this lady always wrote letters on postcards. And especially when she was writing only about her misfortunes, her poverty, Namitha felt it insulting. She didn't want others to know about her poverty. So she told her mother not to write on postcards. She told her mother to write on a piece of paper and then send the letter in an envelope. This was what she wanted her mother to do. And we have seen what has happened to this letter, which was sent in an envelope. Even that one was torn open and read by Ajit without her consent. Now come back to this fifth question. What does she finally decide to write to her mother? And finally, she's so furious and she takes a very drastic decision. What decision she takes finally? What does she decide to do? What does she decide to write to her mother? She decides to write to her mother that she should not write any more letters. Don't ask me for any money. I'm not going to help you. I've had enough. You are insulting me. It's an insult to me. My husband is insulting me again and again because you are begging for money. Don't beg for money anymore. Don't write letters. I'm not here to help you. Don't ask for help. This was what she finally decided to do. Actually, she loved her mother so much. Still, she was forced to because she can't suffer this humiliation anymore. That is why she makes such a request to her mother. Okay, children, these 5 questions you take down in your notebook. Pause your video, take down all these 5 questions in your notebook, and you would answer these questions later on. Okay, after writing these questions, you watch the next part of the story. Okay, after you read this, the next part, I'll be coming back with a few more questions. We'll have further discussions on the next part of the story.
Right then, Ajit steps into the room after finishing his leisurely Sunday bath. Namitha's sharp indignation at the insult, simmering all this while, seems to want to dash itself violently against him. Namitha rose out. When did this letter arrive? Ajit glances at her obliquely, estimating the magnitude of his sorrow. Another handful of cash for this, he had thought, had decided not to give the letter to Namitha. He was going to tear it up and throw it away. He has made a big mistake. Not that Ajit is going to feel abashed about that. As though trying hard to remember, he says, "Letter? What letter? Oh, yes, indeed there was a letter from your mother. I just hadn't got around to giving it to you." Why hadn't he got around to do it? Why? Answer me. Why hadn't you got around to it? What a nuisance, Ajit says. I had forgotten. Why else? Liar. Namitha hisses like a snake. Why are you saying whatever comes to your mouth? Don't people forget? No, they don't. Why did you open my letter? This charge Ajit tries to scatter to the winds. What if I opened it? My own wife's letter? Be quiet. Be quiet, I tell you. For what reason should you open my letters? Haven't I told you 1,000 times not to? Ajit doesn't fear Namitha's anger. He fears a row. So he smiles an affected smile and says, if you are forbidding it, then it is a definite something. Shouldn't I make sure that no one is passing you love letters in secret? Stop it! What a common, vulgar man you are!
Dear children, you have just read how Ajit and Namitha get into a bitter quarrel over this incident. As Ajit enters the room after his leisurely bath on Sunday, Namitha gets more angry. She shouts at Ajit. She asks him, why didn't you give my mother's letter? And then he doesn't answer at first. He starts thinking, okay, why hadn't he given that letter to Namitha? That is my first question here. Why did Ajit give the letter to Namitha? What do you think? Why he didn't give that letter to Namitha? He didn't give it because he thought it would mean another handful of cash. This lady had been demanding only cash, financial assistance. Every letter would be about seeking some help, monetary help or financial help. So he thought it's better that Namitha doesn't get that letter so that he could save that money. So being selfish, he didn't think about that old lady. He didn't want to help her. He rather kept a secret and thought that he could save that money. So come to the second question here. What was his mistake according to him? According to him, what was his mistake? Does he think that opening the letter or reading it or not giving it to her was a mistake on his part? He doesn't think so. What does he think that? He thinks he had made the mistake. He had forgotten to throw away that letter. Okay, actually he wanted to throw away that letter. He had crumpled and twisted it and thrust it into his pocket with only this intention. He wanted to throw away that letter so that Namitha would never come to know that such a letter was there. But now he feels he had made the mistake. He should have thrown it away. Okay, now third question, you see, what was his response when she asked about this letter? At first she asked her, why didn't you give me that letter, my mother's letter? And what was his response? What was his response? He pretended to have forgotten. He said, no, was there any letter? Yes, there was a letter. I forgot. Then she got angry. She told him, how could you forget? Then his reply was, why not? Don't people forget? Don't people forget such things? So he was trying to make it lighter. He tried to tell that it is very normal to forget such things. Now, next question, you see, what excuses does he give for opening Namitha's letter? Then Namitha asks him, why did you open the letter? Why did you open the letter? In spite of repeated warnings, I told you 1,000 times not to open my letter. But why did you open the letter? And what was his response? What excuses does he give for opening the letter? At first he says, what is wrong in opening my own wife's letter? Here he tries to be a bit sweet to pacify her anger. Most husbands do that. What is wrong in reading my own wife's letter? And next, if this does not work, he tries to cast a suspicion on her character. He says, if you are forbidding me, if you are preventing me from opening those letters, then there should be something. Then it means you have an illicit affair. You have a secret lover. Somebody is passing you love letters. So as a husband, I have to make sure that nobody is passing you love letters. So this is how he shows he is a mean person. He is a suspicious husband. And he suspects his wife has an illicit relationship, has a secret lover. And he has no shame in saying this on her face. And he openly admits that he opens all the letters because he suspects that somebody is passing love letters. Okay, think about Namitha, her plight, to live with such a person who suspects her own fidelity, her own faithfulness. It is the worst thing to happen in a woman's life. Nobody can put up with such a humiliation. So Namitha undergoes all these problems there. Time and again, she tells him not to open letters, but he disregards all her requests and then keeps on opening letters. And now even she casts a suspicion on her character. It's the maximum a woman could put up with. Now, dear children, these 4 questions you please take down. Pause your video for some time. Take down these questions in your notebooks. Later on, you could answer those questions. Now, after writing that, you please watch the next part of the story. You read it on the screen. You could listen as well. Now, I'll be coming back with some more questions. We'll discuss the next part. We'll see how this dispute, this exchange of words, this hot exchange of words between the couple continue. Right? Whether they patch up, we will see.
In secret, stop it! What a common, vulgar man you are! After this, it's not possible for Ajit to smile his fake smile any longer. Now, he too picks up the poison knife. He says, "Is that so? Those who whine day and night and hold out their palms to their son-in-law, they are the high-class people? A tongue-picker's daughter becomes a queen, and so..." "Shut up!" Namitha yells. The room's on the 3rd floor. That's a blessing. Otherwise, with that scream, everyone would have come to look. "Shut up!" Ajit rolls out. "What shut up? I'll do what I want, what I please." "What will you do? Can you do anything?" I can't do anything." Almost panting, Namitha pronounces each word clearly. "You want to see if I can do anything?" And immediately, she does something that is astonishing. She grabs Ajit's matchbox that's lying near her cigarettes on the table and she lights a matchstick and touches it to her sari. Instantly, it flares up, the very fine archel of a wealthy white sari. Very next instant, Ajit, "Have you gone mad?" he says, and jumps to her side and grabs the burning patch, slaps it between his hands and puts out the fire. And to tell the truth, now he's a little afraid. He looks fearfully at Namitha's face, sees a fire burning there, bright, blazing red. He doesn't have the courage to put out that fire by slapping it between his hands. So he tries to pour water on it. With great difficulty, he attempts to speak normally. "You lose all common sense when you get angry, don't you? A woman and such anger. Oof!" Who knows what Namitha would have said next. But right then, her niece Rennie steps into the room.
Dear children, the last part ended with Namitha calling Ajit a liar and a vulgar man. And what do you think? Do you think it is right on her part to use such foul language? Is it right on the part of a wife to call her own husband a liar and a vulgar man? I think we can't blame Namitha for this. Actually, she is provoked to do this. It was Ajit who accused her of having some secret affair. So any woman would lose her control on hearing such an accusation. So we can't put the blame on Namitha alone. Ajit is to be faulted. He is more at fault, I feel. So then, what does Ajit do in retaliation when Namitha calls him a liar and a vulgar man? What does he do in retaliation? He too picks up the poison knife. He gets so much furious. He too goes out of his control. And what does he do to insult her, her mother, So that is my first question here. How does Ajit insult Namitha's mother? What does he do? He says that Namitha's mother is a dung picker. He calls Namitha a dung picker's daughter. He says that this old lady always begged for money. And now, when her daughter becomes a queen after getting married to Ajit, and he even calls her husband a vulgar man. And he says that they are, and Namitha and her mother are low-class people, not he or Ajit. This is how he retaliates her. He calls her mother a dung picker. He calls Namitha a dung picker's daughter. So coming to the second question, what does Namitha do that shocks Ajit? What does she do? She does something astonishing, something very shocking. Ajit is shocked to see Namitha doing this. What is that? When Ajit challenges her, when Ajit tells her, I would do whatever I like, what could you do? Could you do anything? And then in her fury, in her anger, he takes Ajit's matchbox, takes a matchstick, lights it up and touches the loose end of her sari. And the anchor of her sari catches fire. This is what she does. Maybe in anger, as she loses her control, she does something very dangerous. She puts her own sari on fire and attempt to commit suicide. We could discuss whether it is right on her part, but she's so much upset to hear Ajit leveling such allegations against her mother. Okay, so she shocks Ajit by putting her own sari on fire. Next, coming to the third question, how does Ajit put out the fire? How does he put out this fire? Now we see Ajit is shocked. He's shocked to see Namitha doing this. Not that he loves her so much, but his reputation lies on this. He knows if his wife commits suicide, his reputation of being a large-hearted, high-minded gentleman would go forever. So his goodwill, his reputation, everything would disappear if something bad happens to Namitha. So he's shocked and tries to put out the fire. And how does he put out the fire? He slaps the burning part of that sari in between his hands. He slaps the burning part of that angel between his hands, and thus he puts out the fire. This is what Ajit does, out of desperation. Now coming back to the next question, does he have the courage to put out the fire on her face? What does he do instead? So this is it. After putting out the fire on the angel of her sari, he looks up at her face, and her face also is burning red. Her face is red with rage. She's boiling. And that fire he had no courage to put out by slapping on her face. Because he was so much shocked. He was terrified. He was scared to see this right before his eyes. He had no courage. And what did he do? Instead of slapping her face and putting out the fire that was raging on her face, what did he do instead? Instead, he tried to put water on it, pour water on it. To pour water means he said something very pacifying, something good, sweet, to pacify her anger. He said, "Oh woman, and so much anger, whoa." So he tried to pacify her by saying something soft. This is what he does. So children, here we see this quarrel getting bitter. They both lose their control and the things are going out of control. But luckily for them, the niece makes her appearance and she asks about the dirty clothes as the washerman is waiting downstairs. And that episode, this quarrel comes to an end just because that niece makes her appearance. Otherwise, Namitha would have said something more. So children, now please take down these questions in notebook. Pause the video and take down the questions in your notebook. You would answer those questions later on. Now we have only one last part left. So please read the last part of the story and then come back for a discussion. So I'll be waiting with a few more questions. You read thoroughly, watch the video on the screen, and then come back. Prepare to answer my questions.
Who knows what Namitha would have said next? But right then, her niece Rini steps into the room. Immediately, she says, piercingly, "So, Karima, how much longer does the washerman have to wait? If you don't want to give him any of your clothes, at least tell him that." For a second or two, Namitha is still, perhaps recalling the washerman's face, waiting for her downstairs. Then she picks up the dirty clothes and starts sorting them. She says in a calm tone, "Go, tell him I'm coming. I'm bringing the clothes." Namitha speaks her mind. So, no one attacks her outright to her face. They only pinch her with sharp words. Her second sister-in-law is almost exhausted with work this morning, and seeing her, she puts a twisted smile on her sweat-streaked face and says, "Well, that's something. At least you finally decided to come down from upstairs. Baba, there is no good or bad time for you. You find the smallest excuse to go into your room and get cozy with your husband. Does the love talk never get old?" Namitha looks around once to get a sense of the atmosphere. Sees the hurly-burly of the morning. Sees a forest of people on either side. Her voice must not tremble. So, she too smiles a small smile and says in an extremely soft voice, "Oh, it's nothing like that. You should come and peek in sometime. Our talk is all angry talk, do you know?" Major wife laughs hoo-hoo and says, "Stop it now, wife. Don't cover up the forbidden fish with your pious spinach. We haven't been raised on donkey grass. Why do we need to peek in? What you're showing is right in front of our eyes, 24 hours a day." Namitha laughs a laugh that can bring an attractive flush to her white face. After laughing that laugh, she says, "Go on, you say the naughtiest things." The busy bow wife runs up. "Have you chopped the vegetables yet? Or are you just telling stories?" And suddenly she stops and starts, "What's that? What is this unlucky thing now, wife? How did you burn your archel that way?" Namitha too starts, but only for a moment. The next instant, she folds the archel back quickly and says, laughing, "Oh, don't remind me. It's exactly what you keep warning me about. I didn't listen, and see what happened? I used my archel to lift a hot pot of water off the stove, and that did it." Namitha pulls a basket of potatoes towards herself and sits down to peel potatoes, and in her mind, she keeps thinking about how she might be able secretly to send her mother a few rupees. She can't really write to her. "I can't do any more. Don't hope for anything from me." Over there, the entire village knows Namitha is a queen. Namitha's husband is high-minded, large-hearted. This is precisely why I compare women to matchboxes. Even when they have the materials within themselves to set off many raging fires, they never flare up and burn away the mask of men's high-mindedness, their large-heartedness. They don't burn away their own colorful shells. They won't burn them. The men know this too. That is why they leave them scattered so carelessly in the kitchen, in the pantry, in the bedroom, here, there, anywhere. Quite without fear, they put them in their pockets. Translated from Bengali by Prasenjit Gupta.
Dear children, now you have just read the whole story. Hope you have understood why the author compares women to matchboxes. Take the case of Namitha. How much of potential she has. She has the potential to pull the mask off her husband's face, the mask of high-mindedness, the mask of large-heartedness. She could burn down that mask forever. But what does she do? Does she go about telling others what his true nature is, what his true color is? She doesn't. She behaves just like any other woman. And why does she do this? Why can't she go about telling the truth to others and pull off that mask he is wearing? It is her helplessness, as she is uneducated, as she is unemployed. She has to depend on him for her daily bread. She has to support her mother as well. So this is what happens to most women in India. They are forced to be submissive. They are forced to submit themselves before their husbands. So I have given a few questions here. So we will discuss these questions. The first one you take, what was the attitude of other members of the family towards Namitha? What was their attitude, the other members? Did they respect Namitha? Did they love her? Actually, we are shocked to see that the other members also have no respect for Namitha. Must be because she hails from a poor family. And must be because they are jealous of her pretty looks. She looks so beautiful and they are all jealous of her. So they all tease her. They don't have the guts to speak on her face because she speaks her mind. So they tease her by using sharp words. This was their attitude. They don't like her, they are jealous of her, they look down upon her for her poverty. So they always tease her by saying teasing words. Now come to the second question. How does a sister-in-law tease her? How does the second sister-in-law tease her? So as she comes down with the dirty clothes, the sister-in-law sees her and says, "Oh, you are coming down on a Sunday morning. You are coming down so late. All your time you are sitting with your husband and indulging in love talk." This is how she teases her. And what reply Namitha gives her? Namitha says that they are not indulged in love talk, they are always indulged in angry talk. That is the reality we know. They don't have any love talk in between them. Most often they are indulged in angry talk, in quarrels. Now coming to the third question. What does she reply when the wife asks her about her burnt angel? So as she goes down further, the other members of the family are all there, and the wife, her sister-in-law, she sees the burnt angel, the loose end of the sari, and she asks her, "Oh sister-in-law, what happened to your sari? Why it has got burned?" And what reply she gives? She replies that it happened when she was taking a hot pot off the stove. We know exactly what happened. And she could have said this to others and pulled off that mask that Ajit is wearing. And she could spoil his reputation forever. But does she do that? She prefers not to. She prefers to save her husband's face, as most women in India do. That is why they are called matchboxes. They are compared to matchboxes. Now coming back to the fourth question. What is in her mind as the story ends? We see her sitting down. What does she think about? What is in her mind? She thinks only about her mother. And she thinks how she could do some help to her mother, how she could send some money to her mother. how she could earn some money secretly so that she could send it to her mother in secret. That shows how loving a girl she is, a daughter she is. So come to the last question here. Why do men not take women seriously, even though they have immense potential? So the author winds up by saying why Indian men don't take women seriously. What is the reason? Just like we don't take matchboxes seriously, we keep it in our pocket everywhere. We don't care much for those matchboxes. The same way we don't care for women. Because we know, though they have immense potential, they don't make use of that potential. So, in the case of Namitha itself, she could do so much. She could spoil his reputation forever. But she prefers not to. And Ajit knows this. Do you think Ajit would correct himself after this incident? No, he is not going to correct himself because he knows that this is the maximum Namitha would go. So this is why Indian men don't take women seriously. They know women can't go beyond certain limits. So this is what we have read in the story. And children, what do you think is the reason for Namitha being so submissive? Though she has so much potential, in the end we find her submitting herself to the power of man. What makes her so submissive? What are the reasons? I think the main reason is she is uneducated, and then she is unemployed, and since she can't earn her own daily bread, she can't go beyond certain limits. She knows she has to depend on her husband, and she has to support her mother as well. So this is the reason, the basic reason: lack of education, lack of employment. This is the reason why most women in India submit themselves to the power of men. So this patriarchy would come to an end if all women are educated, all women are employed. This is the lesson we should learn from this story. Okay, I would like to tell you about a film I saw recently. The film is Thapad, a Hindi movie. And that film presents a similar theme. How the protagonist is insulted, physically assaulted by her husband, and how she retaliates. It presents an entirely different picture. There in that film, she frees herself from the bondage. She gets a divorce from her husband. What gives her that added power? What gives her that courage to retaliate in that way? It is her education. She's highly educated and she knows she could work and earn her daily bread. She doesn't have to depend on a man for living a happy life. So this is the power of education. If you are educated, you need not be submissive. You need not depend too much on men. So you compare these two, then you would understand. This story presents the plight of Namitha. Okay, she also is very bold, but finally she submits herself to the patriarchal system. But whereas in that film, Thapad, we find that lady retaliating, and she frees herself from bondage. So I would like you to read the story again and enjoy it. I would be giving you some homework, in the days to come. All the best.